Short Vort in the Parsha's Behaalotecha. Let's look at the beginning of the Parsha where it says, "And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and say to him, When you light the lamps towards the face of the menorah, shall the 7 lamps cast their light? Aaron did so. Towards the face of the menorah he lit its lamps, just as Hashem commanded Moshe." So Rashi takes point with the first 3 words of the 3rd verse, which says, Vayaskein Aaron. If you look on the right side of your screen, I'm going to actually put it up in Hebrew first. It says, Vayaskein Aaron, lahagid shivchei shel Aaron shaloshina. Now I'm going to put the English up. Aaron did so. This is stated in order to tell the praise of Aaron, that he did not deviate from God's command. So essentially what you would have going on here, according to Rashi, is that Moshe receives commands from Hashem on how to light the menorah and how to arrange the menorah in the temple. And essentially, he transmits those commands to his brother Aaron, who's in charge of lighting the menorah, and Aaron did exactly as he was told. He didn't deviate 1 iota from what Moshe had told him, and he's being praised for that he didn't deviate 1 iota from the command of Hashem. Now, this is a very strange praise for a person on Aaron's level. Aaron Cohen is one of the greatest people of all time, meaning if a regular Joe had been given this commandment and didn't deviate 1 iota, that might be a praiseworthy thing for him, because regular Joes sometimes do things on their own that they're not commanded to do through their own interpretations of things or for what they think is best. But somebody like Aaron Cohen, who has such a direct connection with God and a direct connection with Moshe Rabbeinu, is not going to ever deviate 1 iota. He's not even tempted, we would think, to deviate 1 iota from what God would command him to do. So why is Rashi saying that God specifically records in his Torah, Vayaskein Aaron, and Aaron did so, as a way to praise Aaron for not changing? What are the meaning of those words? Is there a reason that we thought that maybe Aaron would have done something different? So to answer this, first thing I'm going to do is bring a mushal down that I heard from Rabbi Avi Weisenfeld. And I'm also, after that, going to bring a beautiful Sfas Emes to help illuminate this whole thing. So the mushal is that Rabbi Avi Weisenfeld gives. He is a rabbi of Yeshiva's Beis David. He's the Rosh Yeshiva, the Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim. And he says that one time there was a young man who was in charge of holding the lanterns up so that the trains would know which train would go and which train would wait. And one day, unfortunately, 2 trains collided. And the young man was brought to court. And in those days in Russia, it was not good to be brought to court. There was no mercy at all. And the judge asked the young man, he said, "Young man, 2 trains collided. People are injured. Were you doing your job on that night? Were you holding the lanterns up?" And the young man says, "Yes, I was holding the lanterns up." And the judge was satisfied. He's like, "Well, if you were holding the lanterns up and this happened, well, sometimes accidents happen. And it might have not been your fault. You were doing your job. So I'm going to let you off the hook." And blurts out the prosecution and says, "Your Honor, you didn't ask the most important question. All you asked is, was he holding the lanterns? You did not ask if the lanterns were lit. Because what good is it that he's holding the lanterns if they weren't lit?" Now, this mashal seems like a very funny mashal, a funny parable, but it's actually very applicable to what's going on over here. So without further ado, to help illuminate this mashal, we can look at the Sfas Emes. For time's sake, I'm going to say the Sfas Emes outside, but feel free to pause it and read it yourself. The Sfas Emes, he says that there's room to understand Rashi, not the way that almost everybody else understands Rashi. Everybody else understands Rashi as Rashi is saying that Aaron did not change, he did not deviate from the command that he was given by Moshe. Meaning that there's possibly some sort of havamina that he would have deviated from the list of requirements that he was given, however you want to understand that. But the Sfas Emes implies that that's not necessarily what the word shloshina means. Shloshina just means he did not change. He did not change. It doesn't say in what way he did not change, meaning the way that I just said it is reading into the word shloshina. So the way that the Sfas Emes says that one should understand the word shloshina means that the way that Aaron HaKohen did it the first time he was given the commandment, that first time he lit the menorah, was the same way that he did it every subsequent time after that. Meaning that the first time, and this is normal, you can understand this, that you're given a mitzvah or that you're given something to do, it's extremely precious to you. It's exciting. It's new. There's a chiddush in it. And through normal human course of events in nature, after you do something many times over and over and over again, it just becomes rote to a person. That you lose that initial fire that you had within you. And you're kind of like a lantern that's being held up without a light in it. So the Sfas Emes is saying that we are understanding Rashi wrong. When it says Shalosh Shina, Aaron did not change. It's not like referring to like, oh, that he might have changed like the orders. No, it has nothing to do with that. No. What it means is that Aaron as a person did not change, meaning that every single time that he did the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, he did it with the same fervor, same alacrity as that first time that he did it. And that is something that is worth being praised. I mean, this could have been something he was doing for decades. And every single day he did it as if it was the first time that he was doing it. And that is something that is worth being praised over. Now, how do I make this practical? Because Aaron Cohen is on such a high level. And maybe it was just like something that's easy for him to do, especially that he can see the presence of Hashem so clearly. Is there any practical advice that a person can take that will allow them that keep the same fervor? Like, for example, like the mitzvah of tefillin. Everybody remembers the first time they put on tefillin, whether that was when they were 13 or on a college campus, and it was special. When they were 13 years old, they had like a Hanukkah's tefillin, and they had maybe coffee and cakes and donuts, and everybody was giving them high fives. But when you do that when you're 30 years old, you're not getting coffee and cake and donuts like after you've put it on 2,000 times or 3,000 times. You just trying to put it on, and then you take it off as quick as possible to go back to work. How do I avoid that roteness coming into my life? Sfas Emes says, like, and that the key to doing that is the way you did it the first time, like when you were 13 years old and everybody was high-fiving you and handshaking you, that's important. That there was like a big thing associated with that, because what you're supposed to do is that normally you are going to get worn out through life and things might become rote. But what you're supposed to do is that when they're becoming rote and when they're not as special to you anymore, you're supposed to think back to that initial first time. Just think in your mind, oh, I don't want to put on tefillin today. I'm so bored of this. So what you do is you pause and you say, well, think about just for a second, get nostalgic. Think about that first time you put on tefillin. Oh, that was such an awesome experience. Wow. And then that will bring into a love of the mitzvah to want to do it again, that now it's always going to feel like that first time. So may we all merit to be like a lantern with the fire lit inside of it. Have a good Shabbos.